Hello and welcome to TechyChats, the space to listen and learn from our inspiring guests in tech, from their journey into tech to what their role is about. The digital industry is ever growing and ever changing. I'm Rachel, and today I'm joined by Liam Bateman. So welcome, Liam.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you for being here. So CTO and software developer, Liam has had over 15 years of experience in the digital industry, working with some of the UK's leading companies and brands. In 2010, with his friend and business partner, he co-founded Silverchip, an award-winning digital agency in the heart of Manchester city centre, boasting an impressive client list and being renowned for its bespoke software development. Liam is extremely passionate about the importance of developing a real-world curriculum within schools and colleges, working alongside students and young people to provide opportunities and routes into the sector. So, impressive intro here. These are just a few things that you do. Will you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So obviously my name's Liam, and I'm currently CTO at Silverchip. And my route into tech was considered to be non-conventional. I didn't do the university route. I didn't even finish college. I just always had a passion and kind of drive to be in the software development space. And my role today consists of managing and leading the development team at Silverchip. And we build bespoke software products, from mobile apps to games, e-commerce sites, anything in the digital space, as well as in sort of my own personal drive is to open tech up to more people. We're still seeing today parents that, when I work with some colleges locally, and we still see parents locally that believe that to get into digital, you have to go down that university route. It's the only way, and you need a maths degree. And that's just simply not true anymore. And the raft of opportunities that tech's presenting at the moment is phenomenal. And it's not just in the software development space, as we spoke before we started. So I'm very keen to kind of push that along, doing work with the Prince's Trust, the Manchester College, and sort of anyone that will listen, really. And yeah, that's kind of my main driver at the moment.
Yeah, so for me, I went to university and college and studied computing, but when I think about it, I think I graduated like 2017, but tech changes so quickly. Yeah. It's like, how relevant really is that degree now? Obviously, you learn the fundamentals, but you also learn fundamentals doing an apprenticeship, having real world experience internship, and degree apprenticeships are really cool as well. So I managed a couple of people who were doing degree apprenticeships, and I think that's such a good opportunity. It really is like so many different ways to get into tech.
Yeah, I think as well, like the university thing is not a university is bad, because that's the way that sometimes it's pitched. It's just the opportunity, the fact that the opportunity of university is not the right move for everybody. Some people would much prefer to have that kind of structured learning environment. Other people would much prefer to kind of go off and code away on their own and kind of learn and break things and push through them barriers. So it's just highlighting all the different options that are available that's really important now.
Have you found that it's getting better with jobs and employees saying, look, you don't need a degree?
Yeah, I think it's wildly better than when kind of I entered the industry. When I entered the industry, it was kind of an expectation that if you were in a software development role, you would have a degree in a relevant subject, whatever that meant. The reality now is there's still a small subset of businesses that are still asking for a degree. And some of them are justified in the sense that, some are looking for kind of mathematics, AI, for example, which, if you're going to go into the AI world and deep into some kind of artificial learning, then having a maths background will probably have some advantages. But for the vast majority of software development, maths is no longer a requirement. So there are probably, 10-15% of businesses that are still asking for that degree. And I still think half of them are asking for it invalidly. But thankfully, we're seeing a big shift to people that are looking for skills now over kind of that piece of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say, like, the options are that we haven't mentioned? Is there any options that we haven't mentioned about getting into software development specifically? Obviously, there's boot camps, apprenticeships, internships.
Yeah, and the often missed one is kind of just self-learning. I think, the world's kind of literally at our fingertips now, and you can learn a hell of a lot on your own at home, using free online resources that would be enough to get you into a junior position, which would then put your foot into the market. So I don't think that we should dismiss sort of the idea of kind of just that self-drive and learning and motivation to get it done on your own. I think with stuff like boot camps and stuff coming out now, that's often forgotten about, and people think, oh, you need to hit the boot camp, but you don't necessarily. You can do that on your own as well. As long as you can show that ability and that drive to the employer, then that's all that matters.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Self-learning. I know loads of people who have not done boot camps, not done any of the kind of entry-level stuff, but they've self-taught themselves coding and got jobs as associates and juniors, and then moved up. And it's like, I have a friend and a colleague who I work with, and he's fantastic. He is so clever. He's absolutely brilliant. He never went to college. He never went to university. It was all self-taught. And I think that definitely does go under the radar.
Yeah. Like I said, there's so many options and routes now that it's kind of the historic. When I entered the industry, you either went to university or you self-taught. There was no kind of middle ground. Apprenticeships were still a dirty word back then, and boot camps didn't exist. So I still think that's something that people can look at. But in many ways, it's a perfect time to get into the industry because there's just so many different routes that are available.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any advice for people who would want to get into that role? So around self-teaching, what kind of material they need to look at, what kind of websites they need to look at, where they need to go to find people in the industry to help them and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on kind of what your interests are. And I think that we use this word software developer, and that now means a huge range of things. You've got everything from kind of the front end of the way that a product looks and feels, sort of the UX and UI, right through to kind of the way that product is hosted. And with the cloud, that's created a whole new sector in itself. So I think the first thing is to kind of explore the different options that are available. So try and think of something that would help in your life, a product that would help you, and then try and build it, and see which bits help, which bits sort of take your interest and which bits are not so interesting, and that'll help narrow your focus down. But on top of that, there's so many communities. Obviously, Stack Overflow is great for kind of the technical side of things. There's Free Code Camp. There's hundreds of courses on Udemy, as well as kind of any other training provider that's out there. It doesn't take long to stick into Google if you're looking to be a programmer, and there'll be a raft of free courses that'll appear.
So what can people do who are self-taught to kind of impress employees? Because obviously there's still a stigma that you need to have some sort of qualification. If you're self-taught, what can people do to impress employees and land an interview? Yeah,
so I think this goes for everybody, not just the self-taught, because one challenge that we've got at the moment, so we put out a junior role maybe a few months ago. I think in the end we had over 300 entries for that role, which is staggering. It shows how many people are looking to get into the sector or have passed through a boot camp or consider themselves self-taught. And there's small things that I think that people need to do to stand out. The one thing that we always say is that a CV is kind of it's as good as useless in most cases, because everybody writes on the same thing in that CV. Everybody writes that they like walking, they like reading, that they've done this language and they can do this language, etc. It just becomes a repetition of keywords, and anyone that's worked with a recruiter will know that they try and stuff them keywords in to get the CV put in front of the right people. So we're looking for that personality, for that cover letter that explains not just kind of what they can do in terms of frameworks and languages, but why are you doing this? What's the driver? What drove you to open up a computer and kind of start writing code? And that I think stands people out in a big way, which means that we're going to look at them, in more detail and kind of have that conversation.
How do you feel about the balance then between, there's a lot of juniors in the industry and trying to break into the industry, but then there's also a lot of jobs. So I think maybe a year ago it was 80% jobs, 20% like, and versus 20% of developers. So it's a highly wanted industry. Like, we want software developers, but if we have so many juniors, how can we create pathways and processes and suitable support to get those juniors into those roles and into those jobs that aren't just for juniors?
Yeah, this is something that we've caused, the industry as a whole made a mess, basically, because, if we go back, you'll remember when kind of you entered the industry, it was a case of we did not have the skills available. If you put a role out, you were lucky to get 4 or 5 CVs of relevant people. So what we did as an industry was we drove forward at kind of these code camps, hackathons, boot camps, and we made kind of all this mass entry into the sector. Whereas what we've got now is we're a year or so, let's say we're 3 years down the line now, and businesses are sort of swamped with junior staff. So they know now they can't take on any more junior staff because they need the skills, and they need also to make sure that the junior staff are getting the correct support that they're going to need. So it's a problem at the moment, if I'm honest. And the only solution that I've seen so far is that one of the boot camps, North Coders, they've opened up a mid-level, I think they call it Dev Accelerator. So they're taking junior developers and sort of giving them that extra edge to sort of progress into that mid-tier. And I think we're going to need to see more of that external support to help businesses such as ours to sort of say, listen, get the juniors out of the junior level into the mid-level, so we can take on more juniors at the bottom. But the challenge with it all is it all comes down to experience. And sure, you can experience a lot in 6 months or a year, but you've got to make a lot of mistakes in 6 months to a year to sort of get the experience that we would consider a mid-level developer to have. So yeah, I think it's a massive problem at the moment, and it's going to take support from businesses and external training providers to sort of bridge that gap, to push the skills through. But the jobs, like you say, the jobs are there, and people, we need people in the industry. We need them skilled up faster than we're sort of getting them at the moment.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. So how important is, when you're talking about experience, how important is failing to learn?
It's a single, it's the single biggest factor in kind of what makes anyone successful. And I think I look back to my early programming days, and the bits where I had help. So if let's say I hit an issue and it's I've got this error message, what does it mean? And then someone told me how to fix it. Boom. 2 weeks later, I'd be like, oh, what was that? What was the reason for that error message? Then I look back at the ones where there was nobody around, and I had to struggle and sort of fight that pain through to figure out what that problem was, and then I wouldn't make that mistake again. So failing in that kind of supportive environment where you're being left to actually fail and not to be nannied as such, I think is really important as a developer, because ultimately we learn through that pain of understanding what that was and making sure we don't do that again. So yeah, failure is everything, for all walks of life.
I love that. I'm really interested at the moment of how we can bridge the gap between failure and success. And I think it's all pretty much a psychological issue that we have. A lot of businesses are scared of a fear of failure, which is understandable because the businesses, but for people to learn more, they need, especially in software development, in tech, they need to fail to learn. That's how, like you said, that's how you remember the different things that you need to do on a daily basis. How can maybe employees bridge that gap of the worry between we can let our people fail and actually letting people fail?
I think that just comes down to process. We're not going to, if you're a business that's got, say, just a live platform, and it's used by customers 24 hours a day, and you're saying to your developers, listen, just push changes up and fail, it's all good, that's clearly going to cause a problem. So it's making sure that failures are caught in the production line as such before they become a actual business failure. So a failure for a developer might be that they push to the staging environment and they've done something incorrect and they load it up and bam, it doesn't work. That's not a failure for the business. It's just a failure for that individual, which is good. That's a good thing, because they kept it out of production. So I think as a businesses, we can make sure that, and tech leaders, we can make sure that our processes are good enough so that when a failure happens, it's not a disastrous consequence for our developers.
Yeah, and creating that safe space and support, especially as we were talking about juniors and getting them in and having those sandbox environments and things to build on. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, you know, when I'm not sure what it was like when you entered, but when I entered the industry, excuse me, there was, you know, source control didn't exist. You know, we usually had just a FTP server, and it was a case of upload your files when you think it's ready, and you'd upload them and hope for the best. So in many ways, the systems and processes and tools that we've got now allow us to develop as developers much faster than what we've had, you know, 10, 15 years ago.
Going back to your role, what would you say the biggest challenges of your role, and, you know, getting people through and building a business? And this, I bet there's so many aspects.
There's probably a few angles to that. I think my personal challenge is that I don't get. So I spent circa 15 years kind of as a developer, and maybe the last 3, 4, 5 years in kind of more of a what you consider to be a management role. And what that means is that I don't get to write code and make things every day. And for me, that's why I entered the industry, because I love to code. I love to build things and see the output. So as a personal challenge, it's quite hard to take that step back. And I suppose that this is something to be aware of for anyone that's looking at sort of moving from developer to even team lead or any kind of role around that space. You're going to lose that hands-on creativeness as such. Obviously there's different challenges that appear with that, but that's something for me personally that I've struggled with in some ways, because I don't have the control to go in and kind of go, I'm going to build this, I'm going to write this code. So that's the personal one. In terms of the professional kind of challenge, I think the biggest thing is keeping people on top of what's changing. So, you know, every week there's something new. There's a new version, there's a new product, there's a new platform,
new package,
yeah. And it's a fine line between keeping on top of that and also being aware that the newest, shiniest penny is not the one to always chase. You know, I've seen businesses disappear because they're always chasing, you know, whatever Spotify put out or Airbnb put out as like, this is the way that you should do development. And they switch their whole methodologies to follow this arbitrary company in another country. And then they find out it doesn't work for them. So I think it's balancing that kind of making sure that you're ahead technologically, but making sure that you're not just doing things because, you know, you read a blog post or someone on the internet said that this is the future of development, because we've all seen them languages, frameworks, packages, you know, come and go. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge, and just making sure that people are happy, making sure that people are enjoying work. You know, I kind of consider myself, both me and Jamie really kind of accidentally in this position, because we loved what we did as programmers. Jamie's my co-founder, and we love what we did as developers, and we built great products. And the business has grown, which is wonderful and kind of intentional. But we never set out to have, you know, to have that agency. We set out to build great products and build a great place to work. So that's really important.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. We're running out of time. So thank you so much for being on this vlog. It's been absolutely brilliant. If people want to find you online, where can we find you?
Twitter is just Liam Bateman. That's probably the best place, and obviously LinkedIn as well for anyone that wants to connect.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for being on the vlog again. It's been really good to chat with you, and I'm really sad that we don't have longer, but yeah, thank you again.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.